Good morning. As I get ready to start, I want to trim off a few pieces of fabric for my paper pieced star. You can see in the backdrop on the chair back here, there is a star and some colorful patches arranged in an X. I have one more star to make. And I see that my backdrop is not visible, so I will bring that forward here shortly. In fact, I'm going to try moving it to the center of the table instead of seeing this Valentine. Much better. All right, here we go. Facebook Live. Today is a paper piecing demonstration. You can see on the middle of the table behind my sewing machine is a paper piece star with a lot of beautiful colors that I had from a cherry wood grab bag. And overall, I had about 3.5 inches, 4 inches, which make a 3.5 inch finished block of these bright colors left from another project. To begin with paper piecing, I want to show you a few things that you might need. I have a Dritz steam iron. I have an ironing pad, which can flip over and be a cutting mat. I put all of my tools on a tray. Seam ripper. I have my squaring up. I have rotary cutter, a wooden iron that I use sometimes, tweezers, glue stick for some projects, thread, I even have a screwdriver, extra bobbin, and you can see back there I have a clip if I need it. So I'm going to move this tray. These are the supplies that I need. So today's project is a paper piece star. You can see right here it is on my quilt. I am giving everyone this as a free pattern at www.mycreativecorner3.wordpress.com. If you sign up for my newsletter, you can get this paper piecing pattern tomorrow. So please sign up for the newsletter. I send the newsletter twice a month with freebies. We're doing a free quilt along. There's free patterns available in PDF format for my newsletter subscribers. I also have a podcast and I'm doing a blog hop. I do product reviews from time to time. And today I want to talk about foundation paper piecing. So the first thing you have to do is cut your star out. And be sure you cut it on this second line when you cut it out so that the seam allowance is in fact in the paper. I like to do it that way, and I think it's easier, and I make less mistakes. So I have all of my papers cut out, and so the first thing I do is I start cutting out pieces of fabric, and I don't really measure it too much, except for I did cut a big strip of white, wider than this widest piece. Then I start trimming pieces to cover the star points. And I like doing it in strips, and it's way longer than the strip, and it needs to be able to cover the whole triangle, plus a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And I hope that you can see that right here. In fact, I'll bring it back in the light a little bit more. So here's the piece, square, a rectangle that's way oversized. The key with paper piecing is cutting them oversized. And if you don't, you will be sad and have to print your pattern again and redo it. And ask me how I know, because I've done it many times. So here are, we're gonna sew, depending on how time-wise goes, I'm gonna cut out the 2 long strips. Assembling the block is no different than when you do traditional piecing. You put your units together. In this case, we do these 2 units, and then you make a row and then add your other units to make a block. I'm working on these long ones. Now, my computer, it numbered them for you, and it's a good numbering system, but I'm going to tell you right now, I would prefer if you mark this 1, 2, and this number 3, 4, and 5. It can be done this way, and there's no problem. I just like having all of the white points being folded and pressed the seams the same direction. So let me cut out a blue one. See, I'm just taking a hunk of fabric, I'm cutting it, laying it down, going, yep, it's bigger, and now I'm going to cut out, a couple pieces that are way bigger than I need, and they will be squares on the end. Now, something that I get told a lot is paper piecing is wasteful, and I'm going to throw my scraps over here. I don't have my bin made yet. And I have to say I think it's less wasteful because I don't make as many mistakes, and we're talking little tiny trim off pieces that may have gotten thrown away anyway. I'm using scraps from another project. In fact, this whole quilt is scraps. It's going to be a wall hanging, and it is from another project that I finished earlier in the month, and I thought, wouldn't it be gorgeous to go with these stars? Now, I auditioned doing blue points with white, but I really like it better with the blue in the background with the white star with the fabrics. So let me show you what I'm doing. I am covering the area for piece number 1, which is this wedge triangle in the flying geese. And then I'm going to number 2, which is the white tip on the star. Remember, right sides together on the back. So you have to have the fabric facing down, this fabric right side, and then I have a beautiful lamp here, which lighting is really, really important. And I look out to make sure I have a 1/4 inch of my straight line hanging over the edge of the printed line. And you look at the shadow. Can you see that in there? Then I take it to my machine, sew it, and then I cut it, the threads. I always cut them as I go, and then I trim with my little scissors on this small piece my seam allowance. Now if it's a bigger piece, or if you're afraid that you can't cut it real straight, you can take it to a mat and use a ruler and a rotor cutter. The big thing is fold this back so you don't cut your pattern. Then I press every time, every block, every patch, every seam. And I look and I'm like, ooh, there's a little blue hanging out. I don't like that. So let's go ahead and trim that down. Paper piecing can be a little messier. That is true. Now I'm going to take the second piece that I just cut. I eyeballed it. I didn't measure. I bring it up to my lamp and I'm holding it. Do you see the shadow? That it's fully covering it. And you're like, oh, what way am I flipping this? You can tell I have it positioned wrong. And I did that on purpose because this flips the wrong way. If you sewed it that way, you would have to cut it. We want to be sure that the seam allowance is inside the patch that you're doing. I always flip it up to make sure it's covering where I need it. Double check my shadow. Now, if it's a really big piece, you could use some glue stick, washable glue stick. You could use a pin, P-I-N, or you could clip it. But I like to just hold it with my hand, keep it really super flat, and then do our trimming. I cut the threads, pull it down. Now see how it tore here? This is okay because this little piece is in the seam allowance and we are going to trim the whole patch down to the right size. If you actually tore the whole pattern in half, which I've done, just Scotch tape it, it's fine. Something I'd like to talk about before I finish the final little squares on the end is what is the best setting for your sewing machine. The best setting for your sewing machine is a stitch length should be about, on my machine it says 1.5 or 1. It'll make a nice tiny stitch. I also, this is regular typing paper, so when you tear it out, you have to be very careful. That's right, we got to tear out the paper at the end. Be very careful, but you can use paper that's similar to what I showed you on the pattern at the beginning, which is a paper piecing pattern, and it feels the weight of a newsprint. So those are some good things to think about. If you have the money and can purchase paper piecing foundations, papers. Now this one shows up much better. My white is really large and hanging off, and you can see this blue. Remember, right sides together. On the back. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the feed. You can watch this Facebook Live. I will save it and post it later and get to questions that may come up after this live session. And I'm going to try to do the entire block. Once I get the instructional part done, we'll chat a little bit and you can watch me sew and put the entire block together. And there we go with unit number 1. I usually trim down to, oh, see, I ripped the whole thing, but that's okay. We can Scotch tape it. And I just so happen to have some glue stick or Scotch tape here. but we'll be good without it, I think, at the moment. Really like having a little hot iron by the sewing setup here because it really makes things much easier. The wooden press works okay, but I like the hot iron steamy look. Yes, I use steam. Some people don't believe in it, but I certainly do. I'm going to cut a couple other pieces, making sure that it's bigger than my foundation paper, and that it's going to be plenty of room, no matter how we flip it, that it will cover the space. Too big and trimmed down is the whole point of it. So we're doing the blue unit here first. I'm going to do the same procedure. Go to number 2. You can see the white shadow against the blue. And you just rinse and repeat. That's what they used to say in all the shampoo commercials, didn't they? You just keep doing the same thing until you have the black done. Remember, I want the seam to go across the triangle. We want the seam so that when I flip this up, that it's covering the whole triangle in the flying geese unit. Trimming down the excess. And a little bit of steam iron. Oh yeah, steam started up on that one. Love it. Just remember, don't cut your paper. This is a daylight lamp. I want to say thank you to the Daylight Company for their wonderful product. And they have given me this product as they sponsored my podcast. You can tell this is cordless. It's charged. It dims and brightens. And I have it on super bright, and one touch turns it off and on. Daylight Smart Lamp. Portable, cordless, bulbless. All a win for me because I tend to knock things over, and I live in a northern climate where this is 10 o'clock in the morning in February, and it is another incredibly gray day. These little scissors, embroidery scissors, tiny sharp pointy scissors, are great for paper piecing because you need to cut tiny precision cuts. Super sharp ones are even better. Got my shadow, and you see I'm going to flip this up to cover my patch. Or we used to call them patches. Is that old? Is that an old term? To make the little tiny square at the end of the unit. How is that? And trim. We're over halfway done with this black. This is 4 inches until you insert it into the quilt, and then it will be 3.5, and it will be perfect because it will go with the 4-inch pieces that I had left from my grab bag. So I look at this one, and you see It's not super oversized, but it still covers. Oh, it doesn't cover the seam allowance on that side. So we will put that into the scrap bin. We want this to be decisively oversized so that we can trim it down. There's nothing worse than going through all of the trouble to piece this and then have it not be enough. You know what? I'm going to use that little scrap. And if I played my cards right, I have a little piece left. Will it be big enough? Oh, yes, it'll be big enough for that center. I need 2 more pieces for my star points. I have my other strip here. Just trimming them down, cutting them. You know, for some reason, I don't like, this isn't the same fabric, I don't think. I'm going to put them over here. Because this is the same fabric. Yep. You know, whites and blues are super hard for me. That's why you got to have a good lamp to be able to see what you're doing. Here's a little flying geese unit. It's covering up area number 1. I'm going to take my oversized strip. There is another way to do this. You could do it as a square with a stitch and flip method, but I prefer this way because I can see the seam and I know the fabric is bigger. And I make less mistakes than having it become undersized or too small. You know, I wish I had every Monday off. Today's President's Day in the United States, where I live in northern Michigan and where I work. This is a holiday. So there's no post running today. And I thought I would take the time to share with you about my latest project in paper piecing. Let me bring this down a bit. See that there. So in the comments, leave a paper piecing information for what you are working on, or a paper piecing picture of a quilt that you've been working on. I've been paper piecing, oh, you know, probably 5 or 6 years with, we've always called it paper piecing with foundation paper piecing. I don't do English paper piecing because handwork really bothers my hands these days. So, but this type of piecing is amazing because you get super sharp points and precision that you can see over here on these stars that I can't always obtain with traditional piecing. So that's why I like to paper piece. And you're never going to guess what I started out with: a cloth foundation on a pineapple. And I liked it. It took me a while to figure out the reversing the fabric underneath. It threw me off. But then I decided, when I first started on the internet, there was a project floating around called Dear Jane. My friend made it, but it's got so much applique, which is an A word in my vocabulary. I don't do it very well or very often, and the blocks were tiny. They're the size. They're about 3 inches. And I thought, well, I need to build the skills up for that. What could I do to build skills up? I had been gifted Electric Quilter at Christmas time that year. You can see that's covered there. Flip, oh yeah, plenty. And so I decided I was going to teach myself how to do foundation paper piecing by making a little 100 block quilt called The Farmer's Wife. No, it wasn't The Farmer's Wife. It was the Civil War diary quilt. I did The Farmer's Wife second. I taught myself how to paper piece doing, it was over 100, I think 120 in the book. And I didn't need all of them, so I picked the best ones and I set them together on point like The Farmer's Wife because I really liked that setting. And you're never going to guess what. I jumped right into The Farmer's Wife after that, but I realized templates and traditional piecing is kind of hard on little tiny blocks, and that I love paper piecing. That took me to designing several quilts that were paper pieced, and in 2013 the quilt that I had go to AQS Grand Rapids was a paper pieced quilt inspired by old quilts, kind of Amish looking, but with modern twists. If I can remember, I'll put a link to that in the description or in the comments section. Alright, so now we have all of our pieces done. You see how sharp those points are. I'll put my iron over here, and now we get to trim up our pieces. So I'm hoping I can do this safely and not block the camera too much. I practiced this and it seemed to work. So I want to make sure the pieces that I tore, that everything is flat and in place, because we're going to trim it down to the edge. Grab my rotary cutter. I have to stand up for safety. Now also, I'm using a little tiny square up ruler. I put sandpaper dots. If you don't have a ruler that is anti-slip like some of them on the market, which are my absolute favorite. I also have a spinning mat in my, I sew at my dining room table, and I have a spinning mat in the next room where my big ironing board is, and all of my fabric in my tool bench, which is a cutting station. And a lot of times I will, I'll go in there because at the end, when I'm ripping that paper out, I like to starch these blocks because I'm going to rip these tiny pieces out before I put them in that quilt. Now, a lot of bigger pieces or lots of other quilts, I don't, because this Flying Geese unit has a terrible bias and you do not want to stretch that. But this one is small, and if I'm very careful when I'm tearing out the pieces, then it won't stretch. But I starch the heck out of them, which I won't do on camera because I don't want starch all over this room. Oh dear, how did I miss that? Now we'll set these aside. I always pick up all of my scraps. I'm gonna get my tweezers out. So first things first is you lay it out. I'm going to assemble my units into rows, and then my rows into blocks. That little piece fell off, but I'm all right with that. I could flip it over here and use the printed line as my seam line. I'm doing a little bit of finger pressing. You could use the iron or you could use your wooden press. And I'm going to assemble Now this, I tend to go by more of the edge of the paper versus the seam, but I do try to line the seams up. You don't want to lose your points if you don't get your fabric all the way to the edge. These are small enough also that I don't have to pin it. And I'm going to add this last unit on. Oh, I had a trim piece. And add that here. And that is the black. But now I'm afraid to open it. Are you afraid to open it? Because this is going to show us whether or not we saved all the points. Did we get magic or did we get a miss? Magic! There's points with a 1/4 inch seam on all of them. And it never ceases to surprise me that it actually works out. Sometimes it doesn't, no matter how good you are in precision with this. You just sometimes don't know whether you got it in. Now I'm flattening out all of my paper, and I'm going to take the tweezers and I'm going to start looking at the little tiny pieces that are tucked in the seam allowance and use the tweezers to pull them out. But other than that, it's a free-for-all. I will just start pulling. If I steam the paper, it loosens it up. I put my thumb at the top to anchor the seam, and then I pull it, especially on, I have that tiny corner, on these flying geese units. You don't want to yank your seam apart. And then you do the fun ripping part. I'm going to tell you that I have procrastinated so much on some of my quilts that I didn't, I left the papers in when I assembled it because they were much bigger. And see, this bias edge will pull really bad on you. And I still have a couple of tops that have paper in them because pulling them out is a nightmare when you have a queen size quilt. Yeah, I did Farmer's Wife, and I've done a partial size Farmer's Wife and a full size Civil War Diary quilt and a couple of others. But look at how, this is just regular typing paper I used today. And out it comes. It's been steamed, it's been pressed, and here we are. So, tweezers were a relatively new acquisition to my toolbox because I got a serger and I needed these really sharp serger type tweezers to thread it. And I'm telling you, the best thought was someone told me to get tweezers for paper piecing. Well, I had big ones and they didn't work the greatest, but these are the best. I can come in and get these tiny little pieces, and you have watched the entire paper piecing of a tiny 3.5 inch block. And it goes right here to finish my quilt. Stars, they're my absolute favorite. So I'm going to come over here and do a little bit of question and answer. So let me grab the camera. Sorry about that, people. I'm going to put this on the top of my sewing machine. I'm not going to sew, but we're going to chat. Good morning. Today's President's Day, and I had the best morning preparing for this tutorial. I practiced with all kinds of things today. I did hair and makeup on my day off. I practice lighting, and I'm working on figuring out how to make production even better. It's a super great day. It was a warm weather forecast, and I was hoping for sunny weather, but it worked out because I have extra lighting with my daylight lamp. Remember, Daylight Lamps is it's a company great for all kinds of art. If you want to get one, a friend of mine has affiliate links on her website. It would be stringandstory.com. Holly Ann has affiliate links for purchasing all daylight lamps. I'm using the smart lamp, the cordless rechargeable one. LED lights, doesn't distort the color. Did you notice that in the video? I'm also using a little Dritz mini iron. I just bought this at my local store and realized I ironed on my matte side versus my ironing pad. Well, you know what? At least it didn't melt my portable mat. At my station, I have tools. Let's recap for paper piecing. You're going to need tweezers, miniature embroidery style scissors. You could use a glue stick. Let me look. You're going to need a little ruler. If you have a twirling mat, that's great. I have a wooden press in case my little iron before I got that. You can use a wooden press that I bought at my local quilt shop. Pens, glue, pins, glue, extra bobbin, wonder clips, and of course thread. So does anyone have any questions about making a paper pieced quilt? Looking at the feed here. In fact, I'm going to get my tablet and look. I'm going to say hi to the person. Somebody's viewing, but it's not showing me who. If you're watching this live, go ahead and say hi and let me know how you think the production is going and what I can improve on, and any question you may have about paper piecing today. I really liked that white star on the blue background with a saturated color, and it's a very simple quilt to make. It's not very big. It would be great for a doll quilt, a wall hanging, or you could go crazy and make it queen size and just keep going and going. So I want to end up today's live with saying my name is Vicki Holloway. I podcast My Creative Corner 3, so you can listen to an audio chat every week about, or not every week, every 2 weeks about creativity, quilting, a little bit about my life in a northern town, and all the things that are going on in my life. I do some knitting and stuff too, but it's a lot about creativity. I have a Facebook group where we do daily creative prompt challenges called My Creative Corner 3. It's a closed group, so you have to ask to join, and we're doing a mystery quilt. Some people are joining in on that. There are free patterns for newsletter subscribers, and we're doing daily prompt challenges, and we're doing all kinds of wonderful things. And I'm looking at my background, and I realize that that pen cup is on my shoulder with the packing tape. I missed a detail. So anyway, my Creative Corner 3 Facebook group. We share about what we're doing, what creatively has been helpful. Maybe those who are in a creative slump will find a way to obtain their creative mojo again. The website to sign up for the newsletter is mycreativecorner3.wordpress.com, and you can get a free downloadable page to print off of this mini star. Now, I want to tell you, when you print it off, don't hit the fit to page. Make sure you print and then you click the button that says actual size. Your units should be 4 inches across on the piece of paper. So anyway, I want to sign off, and I want to say thank you for joining me on this Facebook Live, and I hope to be back again in 2 weeks with another quilting topic. And if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below, and I will answer them as soon as I can, or if it's something that would be better suited for a Facebook Live, I will probably do that. Have a great day. I'm going to show my mess, Sally. I just saw your name pop up on my tablet. Look at all my scrappies that I got to throw away. And I'll show you the iron and my daylight lamp. And while you're here, before I turn Facebook Live off, do you have any questions about paper piecing? And I'll show you the quilt that I've been working on. And if you are interested in the free pattern, please go to my website, My Creative Corner 3. And this is what it will look like. It has 2 stars on it. And it keeps saying unnamed, so I called this unnamed star in the universe. So anyway, you have a great day, Sally, and thank you for joining me. And oh, I'm glad you're from Michigan. Yay, another Michigan person. Paper piecing is my favorite. Have you tried a Dear Jane or a Civil War diary quilt? I did a Civil War diary quilt, and I'm really, really, really afraid of the Dear Jane because of all the applique. So anyway, if you missed the beginning, I'm going to load that onto my Facebook, and I'm going to try to also put it on YouTube for my YouTube channel called Vicki Holloway, and I hope to see you then. Oh, you did a Dear Jane. I would love to see that. Maybe you could post a picture of it in the comments and give me some ideas on overcoming my applique fears. So, all right, Sally, it was great to see you and talk to you. You have a wonderful, wonderful day.